Friday, June 23rd, 2023. I'm Pauli DeHaan. We're here with Paul Bemister and Reene behind the camera. And we're here to look at some of the history trail with Paul and get some of the Boundary Bay history.
Oh, mittens.
Yeah, so can you see these okay? If
perfect.
you need to sit down, we can just hold them up for you.
So this is probably the mittens that are on Maple Street. And this was the Whalen Dig number 1, I think it was called.
Yeah, we're not really,
Like that hill there?
Sure, yeah.
That looks like maple.
And it extended into Canada as well, I think, didn't it?
I believe yes, and I believe Maple Beach was called 5 Islands. And so before there was a large earthquake that pushed the land all up, according to people that I've talked to over the years, the tide would come in, and there'd be 5 little islands in there.
Oh.
And then the tide would go out, and there was tons and tons and tons of clams and all that. So that's why there's huge middens of clams on these 5 islands. And if you go down to Maple Beach, you'll see, okay, Maple Street where it humps off of Meadow Lane. Okay, I see there's a hump there. And then you see over on Maple Street just before our park, there's one there, and you can actually see the 5, and then one on the end of Garth type of area, one in there. So apparently the tide would go out, and that's where they would get all the clams and stuff. And then I guess it would come over here for the salmon and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of my questions. Was your thoughts on Maple Beach versus Boundary Bay? Like, when I moved here in '89, I just knew it as Maple Beach, but then Pauli knows it only as Boundary Bay.
So we growing up as kids until 76, when I was about 16 or whatever, it was called Boundary Bay because it was the Boundary Bay crossing was the lower border.
Okay.
And we always called it Boundary Bay, and I never heard about Maple Beach until
Thank
later
you.
on. So the bay is the whole bay.
Right.
Yeah.
Maple Beach is the Canadian side, and Centennial Beach and Beach Grove is the Canadian side. So when I grew up as a kid, there was a lower border down there. They closed Roosevelt and put a trailer for the U.S. Customs, and the Canadian Customs building is still there. I think a dentist maybe owns it now, or an air conditioning guy or something like that. And so the majority of the people on the Canadian side were cabins as well as the American side. And if you want to get into this, the Boundary Bay Recreational Club, which was formed in the 1930s for teaching swimming lessons and stuff like that, they would rent the hall at Metcalf's for their events. And they would pretty much have an event every weekend, Klondike night and this and that and the other. And then the swimming ended up with hundreds of kids learning how to swim. And they had the big float with the big rafts with the logs on it they had all built. They would beach them on the Canadian side when there was hardly any houses in there. But there was probably 2/3 American and 1/3 Canadian or whatever, were all cabins. And so half my friends were on the Canadian side in rental cabins and stuff like that. And then in the 70s, it kind of died off, and then the Canadian side, they closed the lower border, and then that turned over and got sold for permanent residences. And then that side went to the permanent residences.
Huh. Okay.
Okay, so Boundary Bay is the U.S. side. Boundary Bay is what we knew as.
Yeah, it was the Boundary Bay crossing was the customs down in there, but the Boundary Bay is the whole bay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you got, White Rock and all that.
But when I came here, it was Maple Beach.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just funny, and that's how I know it.
And that's why you have Roosevelt, which used to be Boundary Road, and they renamed it Roosevelt. And then down in Maple Beach, it goes A, B, C, M, E, F, G. Alder, birch, cedar, and it should be dogwood. But it's maple because of Maple Beach. Elm for
I
Garth.
never put that together.
I didn't either. Yeah. Okay.
Put that together. Oh, that's funny. I never put that together.
So maple should probably be dogwood, I guess.
Right.
So then dogwood, I think, is
Up by the border.
up further up the hill.
Oh my God, I never put that together.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who named these streets. They're probably drinking a little too much.
Yeah. So these are the middens here. That's so there was Whalen Dig 1 and Whalen Dig 2 that are documented up at the
At UBC.
Yeah, and then this is Lily Point, the end of the private beach down in there or whatever. That's very cool.
Yeah.
These are nice.
Yeah, so these are gonna all
They're
go
colorful.
on the seawall, starting, I believe, I'm not sure, Pauli, if we are gonna start them where the,
This is the church. No,
Yeah.
this is the Grange Hall.
Grange Hall, just
Just
down
down
there,
south
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
but
We didn't come up this way very often,
Right.
mostly down on the beach, except for the cannery. We used to launch the boat there.
Okay.
oh, at the cannery.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a little launch at the cannery before the park.
Was it?
The Iverson.
Iverson?
Iverson Brothers,
Oh,
yeah.
they
Yes.
had a launch?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'll tell you a really cool, interesting story. So Iverson had a boat launch there, and he would rent this thing. It was like a snow sled, and it had 4 skis on it, and you could steer it, and you hook the ski rope onto it, and you could tow it behind a boat. It had a large chunk of foam in the back of it,
Oh,
and then you would hang on to the handle. And of course, my dad and my uncle built the cabin across the street. They're both up there in my dad's boat or whatever like that. And I guess my dad's ring got caught in the tow rope.
ooh.
So anyway, I think old Iverson only rented him out for a couple of years, and then he got rid of him for liability reasons.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite the funny story. But my dad got dragged for a bit.
Oh dear.
And there's the church.
That's the church, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful church.
And this pop culture, I think it's gonna be down at the Reef.
Yeah.
It's Ian Tracy. As a kid, do you remember them? They filmed. He'd be about your age,
Huck
maybe.
Finn or something,
Yeah.
or
Huck Finn.
Yeah.
It was a German series.
yeah, Huck
miniseries.
Finn, yeah.
Yeah. Down at the Whalen farmhouse, and use a white picket fence down there.
So in 1986, just as Expo was opening, they were still playing Sunday services at the Breakers, and Loverboy was playing, and me and all my friends, because I had bought my cabin when I was about 21 years old, and this is now I'm 20, 25, 26 years old, and they would all come down to Paul's place. And so we're in the lineup to get beer, and behind me is this cute blonde, who is my wife.
Oh.
So I met Judy at my wife's Sunday services at the Breakers
They
in
serve.
1986.
Okay.
You know how many people have told me that? That they've met their...
Oh, they met there. Yes, yeah.
999 people were there.
Jeez.
I know. It would
And
be
then the
so
overflow went
interesting.
to the Reef.
Yeah.
We arrived at 11 in the morning and stayed till 2 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
The only place
11 in the morning till 2? Wow.
only place I've been drunk and sober 3 times and never left the bar. You couldn't leave because you couldn't get back in again. Dead.
Yeah.
You can't drink. You cannot drink for 14 hours. So you have to
That's
take a break.
terrible.
Yeah. And we go outside and play ping pong and
Wow.
all that. Yeah. Well, these are great photos. So there's the farmhouse.
Yeah.
And thank God for Keith Laporte and Terry, and then for Desiree and Tom or whatever. We really miss Clark's store, and we really had we been, maybe been on the ball more. It was too much for the association to take on to get, but there's still a hole.
Yeah.
There is a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a gathering place.
Well, as kids, you must have loved to go down there to get a popsicle or an ice cream or.
So there was only Ben's store here, so everybody would go to at the beginning of summer would go to Bellingham and get all their groceries. To Market, where you had a black crayon,
Yes.
and you used to write the price on it because it was cheaper to get it there. And then you dropped it all off at the Point Roberts Auto Freight. So me and my buddies, we were 12 years old at the time, 10 years old at the time. We could hear the big tractor trailer coming down Boundary Bay Road, and he put his Jake brake on, coming down the hill. We'd quickly hop on our bikes and we'd ride over, and we would help them unload the flats of beer and canned foods and all the places, and the people would give us like 10 cents, 25 cents or whatever. Well, at Clark's, the candy was 2 for a penny.
And that's when candy was candy.
Yeah, so we'd get little candies or whatever like that. So that's what we make our money.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I was born in 1960, in May 14th, 1960, and my mom brought me down to our cabin at the end of June.
Wow.
And this is my 64th summer, including COVID. We chartered a Cessna plane and flew here.
Okay.
Stayed very COVID, 20
Yeah.
feet from everybody.
Yep.
but
Yeah.
we made it down both times, and somebody said to me, what was it like when you got off the plane and walked? And I says, I don't know the words, but all I can say is this.
Yeah.
And they went, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what, I can feel
It's
it
like,
now even.
it's like home or something.
Even right now, when
Yeah.
can we go down the cabin? My wife says, yeah, we'll go on Thursday. And as soon as I get down here, it's like, and she goes, you go do your thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is, it's like a,
So there's the Whalen store. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Drew Meikle opened it up in the late 70s. He rented it off of owner for a couple of summers. Drew
yeah,
was a
Drew and
teacher.
Jen, yeah.
And ran it as the store, kind of, and the little stools with the
They make
milkshakes and
milkshakes.
the BLT sandwich and stuff like that. And then the old Ship Standard gas station, which ended up being the Freezy,
Mm-hmm.
they closed it in. Pat closed it in, and that's how his sister made money.
Yes.
She would run that.
Yes.
And then Rosemary also was given 4 or 5 cabins,
Oh,
and she rented them.
okay,
And so that was her
income.
income, yeah. There's the old barn.
Yeah.
So we looked at buying that for the BBRC clubhouse,
Oh,
but it was
right.
just a little too far gone,
Okay.
you know.
Would have been a lot there.
And Pat Whalen with his,
Yep, Pat's done his real estate office there.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's Glenfield Resort, Silver Sands.
Mm-hmm.
There's the old Customs, so our clubhouse was right behind it. And unfortunately, to this day, I still don't have a picture of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
shaped like this, with glass and then a little covered porch. And
Huh,
it's weird, but I don't have a picture of it.
nobody took a pic.
No. Very cool. Very, very nice, you guys. Maples. When it was Maples before it was Clark's.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, for a year or two, this was White Spot, famous chicken and chips.
Yeah.
And then I think White Spot in Canada made them change it to Bright Spot.
There was something, yes. Yes.
I did have a bit of
Imagine
a
that
debate with Maureen Meikle.
Okay.
Oh.
And she says, no, it's Bright Spot. And I says, yeah, but it was White Spot. Yes.
Mm-hmm. We got signs, yeah.
And I remember the roller rink.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the front corner in there was dug in, and they were level trampolines.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
And
level
then
to the ground.
yeah, level to the ground, just
Oh,
Trampoline.
west of this. Yeah, so they were like dug out.
Yeah.
And then after that, for a little bit, it was a go-kart track
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s. They rented it, but only like a year or two or whatever.
And-
Oh, and this is when Drew.
Yeah.
Yes, look at how full it was.
Yeah, Friday night bingo, right? For
So
kids.
Drew and I said, wouldn't it be cool if we started up the bingo again?
Mm-hmm.
So lo and behold, Mrs. Tufnell still had the thing that was donated that you could crank around, and that she had the Mr. Tufnell had fixed with the transistors on it for the little microphone thing. So Drew and I started up the bingo, and then we got to visit one night or whatever, and says, remember when we had those swimming lessons and the swimming regatta and all? I said, well, wouldn't that be cool if we started up the regatta? Little did we know how much work it was going to be.
Yeah.
So, sure enough, Drew and I are going to have this. We started the regatta, and the minute you ask anybody down there, they all said, sure, we'll help. It's just one. So then I remember as a kid getting ribbons. Mine were mostly participants. And then there was some cool trophies. Nobody knew where they were or whatever. So Rose Tutt from Tutt's Engraving had a cabin on the corner of Meadow Lane and Alder. This is Tutt. So anyway, I would go visit her or whatever. She just had the greatest story. So I stopped in by and I said, Rose, we're going to start back up. Drew and I are going to start up the regatta. I says, and we used to give out ribbons or whatever, but I remember getting them from Tutt's Engraving. And I see Victor still runs Tutt's Engraving or whatever like that. Would you be able to get us some ribbons and stuff like that? She goes, I've been waiting for you guys. She goes, I have all the trophies for you saved at Tutt's Engraving on Powell's, next to Pappas Furs in downtown Vancouver. I go,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Wow.
So I went with my pickup truck down there, and lo and behold, all across the top was these boxes. tagged BBRC.
Oh, nice.
And we still have them,
Wow.
which we can
Nice.
talk about later. That's
Yeah.
on my agenda. So that was cool that we, and I think the oldest one is 1928.
Wow.
Oh,
So great-grandchildren are winning trophies that their great-grandparents.
that is so cool. So cool.
Tom Bradbury's on there as a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then he's on again in the 55-plus Masters. And he also won it as a kid.
So are there still are we still doing the swim regatta?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we took a break last year because it was, after COVID.
And how many kids do you think? I mean, like compared to when you were a kid, is there less kids today, more?
Well, they were swimming lessons, and then this was the final at
Right.
the end of the thing or whatever like that. Yeah, there's just as many. There's
Okay.
gotta be, I'm not good at numbers, but I'm getting 60, 70 kids minimum.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
And we have the, so for 6 and under, they have a little swim race, and Mr. Owen would donate a trophy to give to the kids, and it's called the My Owen Cup.
Oh.
And
Isn't
we
that-
still do
Really?
that.
That's
Okay.
great.
With the group that's there now. And then we ended, the night before is the quarter-mile swim, which we swim from the private road all the way to Clark's store. It's about a quarter mile or whatever, so we have that. And then on the Sunday or Saturday, or Friday night and Saturday, we have the regatta.
Okay.
And at the end of it, it's a tug-of-war between the center of Cedar South and the center of Cedar North. It's
Oh.
a tug-of-war to see who wins.
That's the
And we have a
guideline.
great big log tugboat.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And these are and this is why the places down there are called camps, because they were literally tents, and they would
Yes.
come down and set up, and they would have stoves in them and all that. So the Maureen Meekles and the Jen Mathesons and all that, they call them camps.
And they still do.
And they still do.
I'm glad you mentioned that because
Yes.
I never asked why they call it the camp.
Yeah.
But the Minkles still call it the camp.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I just kind of go, okay.
So my good friend Jean Carnes, which is Jean Matheson, Jen Matheson's daughter,
Yeah.
they just purchased their grandparents' cabin
See?
on Birch Camp.
Okay.
Okay.
And on the wall is her and her brothers and her uncles, the Heights, from
Oh,
when they were
nice.
tiny kids. And then
Okay.
this photo here is when Gary Pringle's son ran a pizzeria
Oh,
Yes.
out of the Freezy.
Yeah.
we need a pizzeria.
Oh, when they lost the pizza oven at the marina, that was,
Yeah.
I was so hoping that she could have.
You know?
And then the Donegal lots, and then you put the pier in here at the end of Alder. The pilings, you can still see some of them there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who put the pier in?
Pat Whalen did because he wanted the fishing boats to be able to tie up to
Okay.
Oh.
buy
that
some
was-
liquid refreshments at a store.
That was the reason behind. Okay.
And then
Mhm.
what's your story on, I only know that at one time it was, you had to pay to go on the beach? What's
Yes,
that story?
so there's a whole big story on that one, and we have all the documentation for
Right.
you or whatever. So that was around the time of Pat Whalen selling it, and then he got it back or whatever. So then he made it a private beach because it was getting really, really busy.
Okay.
And we even had one day, Hell's Angels had a picnic there.
Oh,
And all you saw was this black line coming down Roosevelt. And of course, you could buy your beer at both Maples or I think it might have been Clark's at the time or whatever, and they were drinking on the beach. It was getting carried away or whatever.
Okay.
So then he started to charge admission. But everybody that down there got a bracelet. I don't know if you guys have one of those.
We don't,
We'll
but
get you
I've
one.
heard of them.
So you get a little bracelet and that let you get onto the beach or whatever. But it caused a little bit of a kerfuffle between, and that's when the Maple Beach Property Owners Association was formed. Because when they all bought lots down in Maple Beach, they said they would get use of the beach. And then Pat
Okay.
started to charge. I don't know the particulars, but anyway, it ended up in the Supreme Court. And there's a judgment, which we have, that all of the people in Maple Beach have a judgment that says that they have free and unlimited use of the beach. Yes.
really?
Yes.
So what, that was a big litigation?
Well, that's why the Maple Beach Property Owners Association was formed,
Okay.
was for that.
Sort of like how the Voters Association was formed because of the IJC. which you brought us the minutes from that meeting at the Reef. That's interesting. Okay, I did not know that.
So we work with the Whalen family. I mean, from then on, I wasn't privy to all that. It was the 70s. I was quite young. I don't know what Pat and Dave Anslow and I don't know what all that was about. All I know is with the Whalen family, it's just been an amazing generational. We get along super good. Kim Pringle, Kim Whalen, Michelle, and all of them are super nice.
Yeah.
Like that. But the beach became a park.
Yeah.
But we have a Supreme Court judgment that says that we have free and unlimited use of the beach.
Right.
So one of our executives was Robert Marriott from a legal firm, and I had him for 3 years send letters to the Parks Department saying, we need you to acknowledge. And then they finally gave us a letter that says we acknowledge. And they said to their knowledge, there is no other park in Washington State, maybe all of the United States of America, where someone has free and unlimited use of a park.
Generational?
Okay.
And deeded to the property.
To the property.
To the property.
So,
Okay.
you know,
Wow, that is interesting.
I don't think we're ever going to need it.
No, but
We have
that's,
it.
Probably not, but it's there,
but
yeah.
that's a first,
Yeah.
and maybe only.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
Okay.
But having said that, the Whalen family has just been amazing.
Oh, Michelle she's been great
Yeah,
through all, like, we haven't talked to Kim or Gary, but Michelle and her husband have donated some things to us.
So this was the racetrack, and I don't know if you guys have an aerial photograph of that, because I never got, as a kid, never actually knew where it went. But we have so Gary Cullen, a fellow that has, he's really into the history. He said, so it actually went and went past Derby and almost to Limerick and around in there. So that was the racetrack.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
Gary's,
the original Naples.
he's given a lot of great
Nice
stuff.
fellow. Oh, that's a great Clark story. And the roller rink, and then these are all picnic tables,
Yeah.
picnic areas in the back there.
Yeah.
And they were changing rooms behind the Whalen store.
Yeah, changing rooms, restrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
And Michelle told us that the racetrack was only for 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was only horses for 1 year, and then the next year they tried car races, and it was so dusty that nobody in Maple Beach could see anything.
Yes.
So dusty. So another thing that I don't know if you have, and we can definitely get it to you, is the reason alder, birch, and cedar don't go all the way to the back. Diane Circle makes a loop. In the center in there, Pat Whalen was going to make a real nice RV park with a pond and a little airstrip and all that stuff. So I have that digitally I can send you. That's why the streets don't go straight through.
Right.
Because I often wondered why Pat would have made more money if he had gone. So he had great. So there was artistic drawings and on all that of the.
I don't think I knew that.
No, I didn't know about it till 2 years ago when Randy Gatiss found it in his mom's
Oh,
collection.
okay.
He took pictures of it, but I'll definitely email you that. But there was going to be a pond there, and then an RV park, and.
Wow. Well, you know, Pat had some really forward ideas. And some good ideas. Yeah.
So they were actually, as I understand it, they were in California, and he was doing stuff down in there or whatever, and then he came back to help his dad because he was getting older, and he couldn't look after her. And so then Pat, he kind of became to come here with, to help his dad and his sister, because the dad was Michael.
Mike, yeah.
Mike to help him out. So there's Glenfield Resort, and it's still there. I remember that as a kid, and all of the people that would rent there, and all that. And this is South Beach.
Oh yeah, now we're down to South Beach, yeah.
It's a great, another great store or whatever. And then for a while in this corner window right in here, you could get fish and chips.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Are they good?
And they wrapped in newspaper.
Nice.
Oh.
Who did the cooking?
Well, I think it was Dee and Dave.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Petticoat Lane, did they call it?
Yes.
Petticoat Lane
That's
fish and
right.
chips, yeah.
Yes.
Dave Archer and Dee. Okay.
We call it down in Maple Beach, making memories. and I've gone to some retirement parties or whatever, and these young kids are coming up to me, Mr. Bemister, I remember going to kids bingo.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's all about,
Yeah.
we're still making memories.
yes.
You know, and we all hold, you know, and I'm still a newbie down there. I was only from the 60s, and not from the 30s. You know, they've been down there forever. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm a newbie, yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely a newbie.
And then there was Bell's Grove,
Bell's Grove.
where every year they would rent, and then the dads would go fishing because there was a launch there with an old Jeep. They could launch the boats and all that other stuff. And then I love the Art Deco building of the.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. My uncle built that.
I guess that was a store. I only remember this store, but I guess this was a store at the end, and that was the house, right?
Yeah, at this end, yes. Or where the portholes are, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool.
So when you came for the summers, Paul, did you, how often did you come up? Or like the community come up and do things elsewhere on the point? I'm just curious, like.
Well, a
Besides-
lot of the wives didn't have cars. Their husbands would only come on the weekends. There was no
Yeah.
commuting or whatever like that.
So they brought everything in?
So everything came in. In the BBRC clubhouse, there was something going almost every weekend. There was Klondike night, there was Wine and Cheese Party, there was the corn roast, there was the salmon bake, there was, they were always raising money to try to pay for that place and stuff like that. So to come up, we would come to Ben's store. That was quite something. And then he had all this Hawaiian shirts and stuff that they would sell on the side there or whatever like that.
Mhm.
And other than that, I mean, there was the Iversons, but that was for older people, not until.
Dancing?
Yeah.
Did you go to the cannery?
So the cannery restaurant was just the best.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the seafood gumbo and the turkey platter.
Yeah.
Oh.
We came just at the end of that.
Oh, did you?
Oh.
Yeah. But I'm
And
just.
the world's worst art.
Yes, that was fun.
As you walked in.
That was fun, yeah.
That
And
was.
dancing? Did they have dancing then?
Ah,
Didn't Richards play?
that was before my time.
Okay.
There was some kind of hall in the front, but I think that turned into the world's worst art. But the
Okay.
restaurant was downstairs, and then upstairs was the bar.
Mhm.
It was a beautiful view up there. And
Beautiful sunset. Yeah.
Monahan's, I think it was, the girls, Danny Monahan's sisters,
Okay.
bartenders there or whatever.
Like
Okay, Patty
Patty's sister.
and Mary.
Mary.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. The good old. Here's I think is the hall here now. Oh, there's the man at the Reef.
That's the Reef,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think the Reef was a store for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Ken's Shopping Center.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the
Remember
bar.
that.
Yeah, the store was in the front.
And I
part
seem
of
to
it.
recall coming up for a salmon roast, salmon fest, or salmon.
Salmon barbecue, yes, for the church, I think was a
It was
fundraiser.
a big fundraiser,
Yeah.
and they barbecued the salmon in there. And I do recall being very, very young, but going to the pier, out the pier with my brothers. And I think it was this one, but it could have been the Canneries Pier or whatever. My brothers were older; they were 5 and 7 years older than me, and they put a star trap down with some bait on it. And you usually catch a couple of crabs off the end of the pier,
Mhm.
but it was getting pretty rotten, so then
Yeah,
they took a big section of it
Let's
out.
talk more about the pier. 'Cause
Yeah.
I really want a pier,
We
Paul.
yeah.
There's no pier.
Crazy on You, written by Nancy Wilson and Roger. That's Hart, right?
Yeah.
That's hard, yeah.
So they rented on Michael's or
Palisades.
Wicklow
Yeah.
Yes.
Drive or
Yeah.
whatever like that.
Yeah.
The A-frame.
The A-frame in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think-
Bachman Turner Overdrive. So I've seen Bachman, Doug and the Slugs. Yeah. I bought the cabin off my parents because it was great. My parents would live here all summer long. September long weekend, they come down the weekend afterwards, turn off the water,
Yeah.
turn off everything. They're out of here. Probably come back in May. You can buy a keg of beer
Yeah, right.
for $25 at the Reef
Yeah.
and rent the pump
Mhm.
and party it. And then my parents bought a place on the water, and at 20 years old, they said, well, we're going to sell the place, and got a hold of Jerry White and all that. So we're sitting at home, and my mom was quite upset because she was selling the original cabin, but she really liked the one that was on the water there in Carth. So that was really interesting. So through the very, very end, okay, we're going to list it with Ruby White. And they decided how much or whatever, and they said, okay, well, I'll buy it off you. My dad looks at me and he says, you're not gonna buy that, but you don't have any money or whatever. I'll give you $10,000 right now, and I'll give you the rest of it when you move out, because the place they had bought on the water, it took them 6-8 months before they could actually inhabit it. 'Cause
Okay.
he was supposed to knock it down and build a new one, but he restored it.
Okay.
And yeah, I ended up getting it when I was 21 years old.
Wow,
Good
that's
for you.
amazing.
Good for
And
you.
that's where, my buddies crashed out.
Yeah. Did you see?
Yeah.
Did you get to see? I saw Paul Rogers from Bad Company at the Breakers. Did you see that one? That was pretty amazing.
Remember the old Breakers?
Yep.
We didn't do anything. We were there the night. And then the next morning we came up there and it was gone.
Oh, the
Burnt
fire.
down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sad.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
really sad.
Yeah.
Crab Town, they used to cook them right on the beach, down
Mhm.
Maple Beach. There it is.
Mhm.
This is Maple Beach here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's still tons of crab.
Is there lots down there?
Yeah, so someone on the Canadian side has formed a social group for crabbing with sticks. And it's
Okay.
gone from 4 or 5 people to there's this black cloud that goes out with the tide
Really?
now on the
Okay.
Canadian side, and you take a stick and it has a V on the end of it, and then you put wire back and forth, and you
Scoop 'em up.
scooping up your crabs or whatever
Yeah.
like that. So they're back doing that now.
Oh, so that's like the old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned
old-fashioned
way.
way.
And I have one of these old copper pots here at my
Okay.
cabin that was, I'm sure it was, this might even be it. It looks exactly like
Wow.
it
Mm.
for cooking the crabs. Yeah,
Yuppie Thompson.
yeah, amazing. Well, these are beautiful, you guys.
Oh,
Just
thanks.
gorgeous.
Yeah, so they're going to go all along the seawall,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully people will,
Yeah.
stop and enjoy reading about
Yeah.
some history. Have you seen the other ones that we've done?
No.
We put 9 up.
2 at Monument Park, 2 by Pier Point, which is the old cannery, right at the entrance there. 1 at Lighthouse, 2 at Lighthouse Park, and 1 at the Marina, and 1 behind the community center.
That was nice, the little ceremony. Sorry, I didn't say hi, but I wasn't feeling too
Oh,
well.
yeah, the 50th anniversary.
Well, I remember I was 13 years old when they dedicated it. I came up with my mom.
Okay.
It was quite, and the beer was huge.
Yes, it was, bigger than now,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's quite something to look out and.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the little orca center, like a building you can
Lock
just walk
away and they
into,
have
with
the,
some walls on it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a map for the other,
Oh, okay.
So then,
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
take a
yeah.
drive.
so then maybe you and your
Yes.
wife, if you got a minute, you can go have a look. Yeah.
So with regards to the Maple Beach Property Owners Association, so it started out as, there are 2 different issues, but there was the Boundary Bay Recreational Club, which was formed in the early 30s, and it was for swimming lessons. They rented from Wayland's or Metcalf store, and then later on they purchased a lot from a fellow that lived in Ladner, Mr. Pike, I believe is his name, for $3,000, and he financed them at $100 a month
oh,
until it
okay,
was paid off. They had to make the $100 a month.
yeah.
And then Dave Anslow and Mr. Muirhead and Mr. They all got together and they got a bunch of lumber, because a lot of the people that were on the American side were from New Westminster, from the lumber. So and so they got the lumber together and all that other stuff, and they built the clubhouse.
Okay.
And then that's where the bingo started, all those different years of bingo and all that other. And when they closed the lower border, the same people that ran the BBRC clubhouse also ran the Maple Beach Property Owners Association. And it had just gone to disrepair and was getting broken into, and they had no interest, and we couldn't get to it. So they sold it, and then they merged the 2 associations. So it's the Maple Beach Property Owners Association, and the Boundary Bay Recreational Club is the recreational division of and then they gave us money from the proceeds of the sale of the building for the purchase of real property. And that's when I joined in 1986, 87. And so it was my job to find all the available properties down in Point Roberts, or Maple Beach. So I looked at everything that was available. And I got there with a young fellow named Jerry White, way back. And we went through everything and couldn't figure out this corner. And he says, well, no, there's a corner in here. It's a whole square block. And I said, okay, I live down there. And it was where we would go ice skating and stuff like that. Well, sure enough, Ona Whaling owned 7 lots, a whole square block, minus 1 lot.
Okay.
that was on Maple Street, and she had it down there or whatever, and so she sold it to us for a good deal. And the rest is history. We had to, before we purchased it, we had a couple of subjects. We got a hold of the county. Can we do it? Can we fill it? Yes, you can fill it. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do that. So it was all good. So we purchased the property or whatever like that, and then we had to purchase it, we had a meeting at the Arbutus Club, and that's where a lot of the people were that were on the executive and stuff like that, and did it proper with the AGM and special meeting, and we passed it and bought the property or whatever. And then came we had to fill the property in order to use it. And so I'd get the odd fill out here, but it was really getting hard to get filled. But then a lady that had a cabin down there, she was never got married or whatever like that, Tootie, she was about a block from the cabin, from the park, and her nephew was building the duplexes there all as you come up the hill on the right hand side, just before deep from Baker Park, and they all had basements.
Oh, yeah.
So they had to dig out all that dirt.
That's right.
So we put 450 loads of fill in there.
Really? At the park?
And each one of those loads had to have an 8.5 by 11 form filled out, photocopied, and a paper clip with a $5 US bill. And my dad let me take time off work because I worked in the office at Bemister Electric for my dad, and I would sit at the border and I would hand Pam.
Oh,
a
right.
note.
Each time a truck came through.
So they were digging all the basements at once, so we had lots of dirt.
Yeah.
Well, on day 3, Pam came in. She was the
Port director.
customs. There was
Right.
customs and there was immigration,
Right.
and she was customs,
Okay.
and it was ran by immigration, and then now it's switched or something. But
And
anyway,
that's Pam Crawford?
Yeah.
Yeah, just kidding.
she 9 o'clock that day, she goes, I don't think so. We're done. And I looked at her and I went, oh dear. So do I get upset or? So Pam, I appealed to her, and we got the rest of the dirt. And then of course, when you get that much dirt, you got to push it onto the land. So Jeff Pelche, God rest him or none, but he was my dirt mover. Hank had just taught his young son how to use the machinery and all that other stuff, so he was the guy or whatever like that. And of course, Jeff Pelche likes to play, if you can find me,
Yep.
I'll work for you. Well, he was impressed because he couldn't hide. I would find
You'd
him
find him.
everywhere he could hide. And I said, Jeff, I said, you gotta get down there. Oh yeah, no, I'm coming. No, Jeff, they're dumping the dirt on Maple Street.
Oh, right.
We need you bad. There's nowhere else. And sure enough, he would show up.
Okay.
I think he just liked the cat and mouse game or whatever. But we had a good rapport or whatever. And 9 years later, the park was made, and then Gary Pringle and Ben the welder made us the shelter. Ben would drive around in a big cube van. He lived on Paul's Road or not Paul's Road. Yeah, Paul's Road or somewhere
I
in
don't
there.
remember Ben
Yeah, he was
Welder.
raising his grandson or something like that.
Huh.
Anyway, they
Okay.
built the, and then we built the swings, and then we did the tennis court,
Right.
and we have the little library in there now too as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the one thing that when at the very beginning they said, okay, I had the drawings all set all up, and one person said, well, we're going to have to fence all the property. And I said to them, why? He said, well, it's private property, and we have, I said, well, if you're going to fence the property and put no trespassing signs, you can find somebody else to build it.
Good for you.
And
Yeah.
so to this day,
Okay.
you can go down there. Now, we're going to have events where, sorry, but it's closed. No, sorry, we're using the tennis court, but
Right.
you can go, grandchildren or whatever can play on the,
Yeah,
and there's
It's
no
hard.
trespassing signs.
Yeah. Good for you.
good for
Yeah,
you.
and you know what? The vandalism is zero.
Oh, yes.
And during COVID, it was open the whole time, so I got a hold of Jerry White's wife and also Tom Bradbury's wife, because they have grandkids and stuff like that. I said, guys, go down there and use it. Just make sure there's no needles, just here's my cell phone, text me. I got people that'll fix a swing if it's broken or whatever. During 2 years of COVID, I think, was it your husband that cut the lawn?
Yeah, Fred was going to, he cut it once, I think.
Yeah, we cut it a few times. We cut it that one summer, to,
Okay.
kept
Yeah,
it
yeah.
down for us or whatever like that. And zero vandalism and
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
We were all just like, all alone with nothing to do. Exactly.
Twiddling our thumbs, but
Yeah,
yes. So that's the history of, so the Maple Beach Property Owners was formed because of all the development and all that, which will get you some pretty interesting stuff to give to you. I had handed it off, but then I'll get it back now to get it up to here. I didn't think that I could make it up here, but yeah, and it still carries on. I think right now we run about 250 to 270 cabins that are members of the 305 that are down there. So I do believe we're probably the largest association on the point.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they
just
did
a great.
the 1999. They did the cottage tour, and then they did it in 2019. So, any talk about another cottage tour?
They just had one just before COVID.
Right,
but,
in 2019. It was like 20 years later.
Yeah, and she passed away.
Yeah. I forget. Yes.
Yes.
But very
Did
successful.
you have the books on that? Okay, you have them.
Very successful.
Yes.
And
Well, I think everybody's kind of gradually coming. So it's different now, where when we were kids, our mothers came down for the summer, or your aunt, or your grandmother, or whatever like that.
Right.
Now, last year, you can swing a bat and not hit anybody, and come Friday night is kids only bingo at the park.
okay.
And
It's been that way though, right?
yeah,
So,
and they
Friday
all
night.
show up on Friday night, and the kids are let's go to grandma's, let's go down to the cabin, we gotta go to the cabin or whatever.
Making
And,
memories.
yeah, and being on an association, as you guys well know, there are times when, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And what I do is when I, it's because it's been a lot of years for me, and when you're a person doing stuff, you open yourself up for criticism. Why did you do that? Why was it built this way? I'd have done it differently. Very, very minority of people. The people that are behind me down there are just amazing. Well, what I do is on Friday nights I ride over on my cruiser, and then right by the power pole is a bench that's in my memory of my dad, and I sit there and I look out at all the kids, and it's packed. And I go to myself, yeah, this is why we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I'm looking there and I'm, who are all these little kids?
Right.
And by the end of the summer, I know half of them.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Can you imagine how exciting it would be if Clark's was still there? For these?
Yes.
It was too much for us to take on, though.
Yeah.
The
No.
park was.
Right.
I can't even fathom how many hours. I'm gonna guess 1,000.
Wow.
Putting the park together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
And all that, and you have a young fellow cutting the lawn or whatever, and I can't look after it now. I was supervising it or whatever. Within 2 seconds, it was somebody else, and they're weed eating the adult.
Nice.
Good. A real community.
And then we would have bingo. So Mrs. Tuffnail did the bingo, and then after Mrs. Tuffnail was Mrs. Gatus. I mean, she was awesome. This is all the BBRC clubhouse, and then there was Drew Meikle. Well, he was a hoot. And then we had it behind Clark's store, and then in the Whalen store for a few years. And then for years we had Ann Kennedy's Kids Pony Bingo. Ann Kennedy was amazing. We're never going to be able to replace Ann Kennedy. Well, lo and behold, we get somebody else. And now we have Bert Clark. Oh my goodness, he's just fantastic. He plays in a musical band down here.
Oh.
And he plays the music and gets everybody up dancing, and it just warms my heart to see the volunteers that come and do.
They're not afraid.
No.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then they come to the association and we say, what do you need and how can we help you?
Okay.
What do you need?
Yeah.
I mean, and they needed a place for a memorial party for Bob Jewell.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Allie Calder phoned me up and said, I think it was Allie or Michelle,
Yeah.
Paul, do you think we could borrow the... Absolutely. What do you need? She goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, now we have tables, we have chairs, we have, what do you need?
Yeah.
And Bob Fest.
I was there, and that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so nice.
That was a real
so nice to see.
dedication to
But
Bob.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah.
We all get to share.
Yeah.
Right.
Point Roberts is a very
You know.
unique place.
We keep wearing that word out, unique, but it is. It really is, yeah.
And I loved it during the 2019 cottage tour that we came down and set up. You guys had the food right there, and then we set up, and it was at that event that
Or silent auction.
right
Yeah.
that a lady came up and introduced herself to me, and she told me about her father helped build the Bible camp over here.
Oh, yeah.
And that they were replacing all the windows to the camp, and I might want to go over and talk to them. So Pauli and I went over, and anyway, we got the executive director, and these came from the APA cannery.
Beautiful.
These windows that built the Bible camp,
They were barged over in the 1940s, I
and
think.
we
they said.
never knew that. Like,
Yeah.
I never knew that. So he left, we brought him in when we were doing the center, and he left, he came back with a box truck. Here you go.
That's
He gave us a bunch of windows, and it was
Like-
like perfect. It was meant to
down in
be.
Maple Beach, when you're finished with something, you just put it out front and you put it for free.
Yeah, and it's gone.
Yeah, so today my daughter and her husband had bought a house in Westminster built in 1911. Here's an antique hutch with the mirror and the side tables. Well, she already had one of those, so it's still down there if you're interested. And they got a beautiful antique corner table. Gorgeous. And then the other day, my grandson and I were out walking or whatever, and here's a push scooter that you with the handles and all stuff. He said, "Oh, I like that crap. It was like brand spanking new or whatever." And I'm looking at it. That was your uncle's. We had put it out for free 20 years ago.
Oh,
And-
serious?
yeah, so now my grandson has stuff.
So now it came back to the
It came
family.
back.
Oh, for
So
God's
he'll
sake.
use it for a bit, and when he's done with it, you just put it out front for free.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
But it's generational down there.
Yeah.
And you either get it or you don't.
Right.
Why would you want to be down, like
Yes.
there's no services,
Yeah.
there's no corner stores, there's not much of anything. That's the beauty of it. You need to.
Yeah, that's almost like the whole Point Roberts, you either get it or you don't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when I was raising my kids, 2 daughters and a son, when they would leave, you didn't worry because they were basically being watched
Yeah.
by everybody there and everybody coming back. Everybody knew everybody's kids, and all the kids hung out together. And of course, having 2 daughters, they had the earliest curfew, so of course that meant in addition to the cabin where I put a covered porch across the front.
Okay.
And then I had to get up and go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:45 in the morning. I would leave to go to work in the morning or whatever. So my daughters had the earliest curfew, and it had a big ping pong table on it or whatever, and then they'd play cards till 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night, whatever the boys' curfews were, and my wife would supervise. But
Yeah.
I could go to bed and I knew where my daughters were, they were on the
Right.
porch.
Yeah.
And to this day, those are both my daughter's best friends are the friends from down here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Lifelong.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now me and so my mom and dad bought one on the water on Garth. And here's an interesting, my dad passed away quite young at 69 in 2000. And then my mother just passed away during COVID or whatever like that. And of all of the material possessions that my mother owned, and the only thing she cared about was the cabin.
Oh, really?
And she put it in a trust
Mhm.
that it would be passed down. And beautiful home in Burnaby, Cadillac car, 67 Mustang. She had a house as well with
Nothing.
the cabin.
The cabin.
And,
Yeah.
and my dad had my parents bought the cabin off of the Creans, the Kearney Funeral Home people, and it was the original cabin that Michelle Whalen and Kim were born in.
Oh.
Okay.
They were born in that one, and then they ended up with the one next door, the blue one,
Yeah.
on the other corner. But Kim,
Pat's old?
Pat's cabin.
Yeah.
I don't know how the transactions went there or whatever, but Kim was born in this one,
Huh.
or that's where she grew up as a little kid or
I
whatever.
know where Michelle lives now. I'm gonna look and see where your family cabin is. Now
Well,
it's gonna. I'm gonna see
So
it.
her cabin's here, and
Right.
if you take the floor plan and flip it and put it here,
It's the same. Oh.
it's the same
okay.
cabin, except this one's totally redone with vinyl siding, and my dad dug a foundation
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
all that stuff or whatever. But
Okay.
yeah, if you're ever down there, I'd be more than happy to take you for a tour of the.
Cool.
So it took me 8 years after my father died to finish renovating it.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then who stays in it now?
And we all share it, so we all
Okay.
have A, B, C, D.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're 3 weeks in the summer alternate,
Yeah.
and in the winter time it's all different times. And
Great.
oddly enough, it has brought our family closer
Oh.
together,
Okay.
which is not a it's usually it tears it apart.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
But
Right.
yes, we were getting along very, very well, and
Yeah.
the beauty for me is I get to ride my bike over and go visit my siblings and see their kids and their grandkids, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then I get to leave.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've got their own digs, and yeah, I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like living in the same neighborhood, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And our neighborhood is all the same people, and yeah.
Great.
That is super, yeah.
What's your favorite memory? If you had to pick one.
Oh my goodness.
I know, that's a toughie. It's like picking your favorite kid, but just just a favorite memory
Well, the best thing
that makes
that
sure
ever happened to me was in the lineup to get beer at the Breakers in Point Roberts.
because your wife was behind you.
And the lineup was 20 minutes long. And she was behind me with her girlfriend. She had just moved here from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And one of my buddies came around the corner and he had a whole tray full of Foster's beer. Now it's like an oil can, the Foster's.
Right. Yes.
And he said, "You won't believe this, the waitress asked me if I wanted a beer. I bought the whole tray." So Judy and her girlfriend bought
Okay.
2 of them or whatever like that, and I took 2 and we visited for a bit and kind of went our separate ways, and then to me that's,
Okay.
I mean, I have a million different memories, but the best thing that ever happened to me was, and she had only been here from Saskatoon for 1 week,
Oh,
and her
nice.
cousins brought her down here.
Wow.
Okay.
For
So she
tourists.
wasn't even familiar with Point Roberts except for
She wasn't even familiar with Vancouver, nothing.
Yeah.
And they were on a road trip. They had one of their cousin's friends was a limo driver,
Okay.
and they had their uncle's fancy Chevy van with a raised roof or whatever. Of course, he was a professional driver, so he did not drink.
Okay.
So they had a designated driver in this van or whatever,
Oh, nice.
and then they had a ball. And yeah, so, but I have a lot of great memories. A lot of it has to do with the Maple Beach property or the Boundary Bay Recreational Club.
Right.
And stuff like that or whatever, but the friendships,
Okay.
you know, the Alan Meekles and the Randy Gatises and Peter Confortons and the Greg Confortons and all of those people. Because I would leave home and not be there all summer. I wouldn't come home. So my friends from home, I never saw them. COVID happened.
Right.
We were down here on the Monday, and they shut the place down on Friday.
Oh, right.
We were getting ready to finish because we had done a coach house next to our cabin, and we had just some minor things to finish up, and then we were in May. Well, May was my 60th birthday, and then we were going to have a big birthday party, a live band and all that, and a fellow down here, Tom, was helping us or whatever, and he showed up on the Monday with a full respirator on and all this. We looked at him and then he explained to us, "Oh, this is COVID and this and that, and I know about this from being in New York. We did a play on it and whatever. They're going to shut the border down and everything." Okay, this guy's right out there, whatever. And Friday we had just filled the fridge up
Oh.
and everything. So I'm at home and I went to my neighbor and I said to my neighbor, "So, what do you do in the summer here?" And he laughs and giggles. He was vice president of Costco. I said, "No, I'm dead serious.
Oh,
I have
in
never
town.
spent
In town.
a summer in town in my life.
Right.
What do you do?" And man, was it boring. I mean, Vancouver's a great place. There's lots of great things to do. It was COVID, so you had to,
Right. Be careful.
but it wasn't fun. It wasn't hopping on a cruiser and with the famous expression, "I'll be right back."
Right.
2 hours later.
Yeah. Right. 2 hours later.
2 hours later.
Yeah.
I did come right back. What are you talking about?
Who'd you run into? Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an amazing. You don't buy down here to make money, but it has been the best return on quality of life that you can
That's great.
imagine.
And
Great
because
to hear.
it's generational now, you don't really see many properties at the beach for sale, and when they are, it's families that try and,
Yeah, so I think 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, there were 6 cabins just sold, and 5 of them were bought by grandchildren.
Okay,
Right.
The
Nice.
Walkers, my nephew, Mitchells,
The Laportes, because
Laportes,
Jesse.
Jesse Laporte, and,
Yeah.
and Mac Laporte, Keith's son,
Yeah.
Mac, bought the one on Fur. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember talking to him about waiting, and then.
Which is great because he's a house builder and all of the stuff, and he bought the Clark's old cabin on Fur Street, which needs some TLC, and
The right guy bought it.
you know, just like Keith buying the farmhouse,
Yep.
you know, and then my nephew bought one on Maple Street or whatever that was built in 1913 or whatever, and he's a third done.
there's real character in those places.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
some of the, there was one that had a ballroom from one of the clubs in Vancouver, is their floor in one of the cabins.
Well,
That
my
one-
mom's cabin on Fur there, Ron down here,
Ron Calder?
Calder.
Yeah.
Ron Calder said that flooring, it was the flooring that they did, same flooring that they put in the cannery for Iverson's
Oh.
dance hall.
oh,
And in 1912, they built the dance hall, I think, is it that the right year or whatever? My parents' place was built in 1913, so 1912, 1913. So they had come down with this flat grain, edge grain, whatever it is, fur. And that's what my mom, when we peeled up the old carpet, we were going to put some laminate down. The contractor, you
No.
can't cover that.
yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I said, well, where am I going to find somebody to refinish it? And they did it for me.
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
Beautiful.
Like this?
Yeah.
This was all covered up with carpet.
yeah.
My mom's was painted red,
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
and now it's all,
Nice.
yeah.
See, these are like, you just never know,
Yeah.
these little cabins. And that's why in the cottage tour, it's so nice to be able to look inside and see, because,
A window in the world.
yeah, because they're not all shiny and fancy. They're all just, they just feel cozy and warm, and
Mhm.
they have their
Sure.
beach finds and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just fun things. So I just really enjoy that, the cottage tour,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And some people have made them all modern, and some people have kept them original.
Right.
And Mr. Menzies down there, which is now it was Paradise was the cabin. Mr. Menzies was he built the stone beautiful fireplaces. So Roger and Ann Nottingham now.
Oh,
They have a heritage home in Westminster, and then theirs is, and the windows slide into the walls.
Oh,
So needs to say there's no insulation in the walls.
You're right, you're right.
really? They just like,
Yeah, so Mr. Menzies was the local down there. I think he was a builder, but more he did most of the stonemasons or whatever like that. And he had she had a beautiful Bedford car, and he had the old Bedford pickup.
Okay,
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
because Ed, he
Ed
was down
Menzies.
there for quite a while. I didn't realize it.
He
He
lived-
know his wife.
Yeah, he lived on Alder, just 1, 2, 3 west of Meadow Lane.
Okay,
It's Roger and Ann Nottingham's cottage.
Okay.
It's called Paradise.
I remember years ago taking my real camera, film camera.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what, and I'm gonna have to try and find these photos, but I just started walking up and down and just taking pictures of the cottages, thinking
Oh,
at that time, what if they, you know, maybe somebody knocked one down and put something else fancy, and then I kind of got, what if they don't keep these great cabins? I better take pictures of them so I can
So-
remember.
I went on the Whatcom County website and went onto the tax roll and went into the photos because they were upgrading all the photos and deleting the old ones. And I cropped them all and saved them all.
oh, good for you.
Oh,
My wife says I have to get a life.
yeah,
But that's
Really?
how, yeah,
that's
so I can
cool.
share that with you as well
That's
on a USB
cool.
stick or whatever, yeah.
yeah.
So I saved a lot of them.
Okay, that's great. I
It's a
didn't
good
know
idea,
that.
because I understand that they might not save those photographs. They,
And then
Awesome.
Google Maps just came last week. Google Street View.
Yeah, that's what Ray,
Oh, right.
Ray was just talking, and
I just did all the streets, so now when you go on, so Maple Beach Park is on Google Street View is called Yosemite something park or something. So
Oh.
I had to go on and claim it as and then I have to wait
that's
10
where
days.
Yosemite Park came
There's
from.
something like that.
Yeah, there
I'm
was
like,
something
what?
odd, yes,
Oh.
And Yosemite tennis court, and
oh,
it was like,
yeah,
so they had to go in and claim it
okay,
as a business,
oh,
Yeah.
and then I had to do a video of who I am and all that, and then it takes 10 days for it to clear, and then I can go back in and rename it.
Huh,
Okay,
The Maple Beach Property Owners Association.
Okay.
or
well,
whatever.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's weird.
somebody had done, I think it was,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's an inside
But I'm glad you did that. I didn't know that they purged the old photos from the property.
I know they put
believe
new
it.
ones on, I don't know whether they've kept the old ones or,
Right.
I thought, you know what, I may as well,
Right,
Yeah,
you know.
go along and do it.
hang on
Good
to
for
my,
you.
yeah.
So my parents came down in 1956, 57, and my uncle, Ernie Kabetich, they went to school together for 13 years at St. Pat's in 20, around 20th and Main Street in Vancouver, St.
Yeah.
Pat's High School, elementary and high school. And so my uncle, to make some extra cash, was building cabins down. So they had built one, Robert's Retreat. I know them all, I know their addresses, I know their names. And then they built the one across the street, and my parents, they would all park on the lot there or whatever. So my dad went down for 2-3 weekends giving them a hand, and they would come home and they were just loved the place. And my mom came down a couple times too or whatever. She just, oh, this place is amazing or whatever like that. Well, my grandmother owed them some money because she was living on her own in Langley, and it was too much. So she moved in with my parents in South Vancouver because she worked at the Broadway printers or whatever. So and of course my parents wouldn't collect rent. So my mom and my grandmother went down, her mom went down and saw, I don't think it was Pat, I think it was Mike Whalen, and in 1957, and for $480 bought, and my grandmother gave him the $50 down payment.
Wow.
Aw,
Wow.
nice.
Yeah,
That's
and then now the cabin across the street has just the tail end of a full restoration done by the daughter of the last owner, Margaret Singh,
Okay.
owned it or whatever like that, and it was very, very sad, but Margaret just absolutely loved Maple Beach. She would come down there every summer by herself. Her husband was a teacher in town. He just maybe come on weekends and raised her two children down there or whatever like that, and then they got older, and then she still came down, so we'd stayed and kept an eye on her, and she was really, really nice, and she would ride her bike down at the end of the day and go for a swim out on the beach and whatever.
Okay, yeah.
And one day she went out, she went for a swim, she didn't come back.
Oh,
She passed away on the beach or whatever, but I mean, it was
Yeah.
terrible that we lost her and all of that.
Right.
but,
What a way to go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We all want to do that swim when it's time, you know?
And the other gentleman on the private, he went out on his boat. Can't think of
There was Jim Miko passed away inside his
Right.
cabin,
No,
and
this
then
is more recent. Can't think of his name.
Bob LeWarn.
Yeah, that's it.
Bob LeWarn, yeah.
So,
Great fellow.
you know, the sea called them home.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than going in the water, and I always still have my feet to Mount Baker. I mean, come on. You know, it's just nothing better than to float
Yeah.
at the beach.
Well, my mother in the end went at her care home or whatever, and with COVID she couldn't come down or whatever like that. And she her body was worn out, but her mind was fine. But every once in a while she'd drift off, and she'd look out the window and she says, "Oh, look at the Aford boys out there skimboarding."
Aw,
And
yeah.
rather than correct her, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
And I says, "Who's out there? Who's that out there water skiing? Mom, out further or whatever."
That's
She
nice.
goes, "That's you, isn't it?"
That's nice.
yeah. Memories.
I know.
Making memories.
Yeah. Lots.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. Thank you for having a preview and giving us all this history.
Yeah.
It's great.
You're welcome. More than
You know,
well. I hope to get better at enjoying
we do
your
too.
group.
Yes. We
And,
definitely do.
I don't want to call it weird or whatever, but yesterday I went for a bike ride and went to the cemetery
Oh, yeah.
at number 143. My brother's right next to me, and my best friend's right below me, and my sister went to she went to buy a plot there or whatever like that. I don't know who she was talking to, possibly you or whatever, but both your brothers own places in there. Are you guys getting cremated? Yes. Okay. You're good for 24.
Oh,
You don't need to buy. Which brother do you like the best? So she's going to go in the middle, right between the.
keep everybody, keep the peace. Yeah.
Yeah, and right below Jim and Don and Bunny and
Oh, okay.
I don't know, Bunny's
No,
she's
Bunny's
still
not
around,
there.
but and James,
Yeah.
the son.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went there for Drew's dad, which was
Done.
Don,
Mhm.
for his funeral. There I also went to Jim's as well or whatever, but we were there, whatever, and Robin, I think it was, played the bagpipes, which was really, really nice. And then I looked up, and there was 3 eagles
Yeah.
circling
Yeah.
the cemetery, and
Yeah.
I did tap Maureen. And I said, wow,
Yeah.
I bought a place.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll try to get Maureen back down maybe for the day.
Yeah, that was I would go for a bike ride down the private beach, and I would say to my wife that I'm going for a bike ride down the private beach to go visit with Maureen. She goes, okay.
Yeah.
She says, well, text me when you're leaving and I'll start making dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what an amazing person. Jim was on the association, taught us. Alan Meikle is just putting the sailboat out that Jim Meikle taught us all to sail in
Oh,
on
okay.
Wednesday nights.
Oh.
Still functional. That's great.
It might be the 2nd generation, it might be 2.0, but it looks exactly the same, whatever. But yeah, and so if you were on the private beach at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, he took the first 4 or 5 kids
Oh.
sailing.
Okay.
So I signed up right away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like that. And, Alan and Billy and I and a little car topper boat with a 4.5 horsepower motor. Little kids, we weren't 40 pounds soaking wet or 50, and we would water ski behind it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
4.5 horsepower.
Right.
Wow.
And we would pull skim boards. And,
Nice. Yep.
and there used to be a boulder halfway down in front of the Manring's cabin. It's now buried in sand and 100 feet on shore, but back at the time it was, the water would hit the seawall, and we would play capture the rock.
Mm-hmm.
When there was no barnacles on it, we would tackle each other.
Nice.
Yeah,
Great memories.
great memories.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.